Well, hello there, everybody. How are you doing today on this fabulous Thursday? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for just being a part of this. You enrich my life. It's like Christmas 24 hours a day. So, welcome everybody. I trust you're doing well, speaking favor over us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken be our ever constant reality. And that's a good thing. You kind of plant the seed for when you have the need, and when you get that point where you have that need, well, you've got it covered. You planted the seed. There is a proverb that says that as long as there is seed time, there shall be harvest time too. I used to teach on harvest time. It's part of our being, it's part of our lives. We all see it, you all see it, but sometimes it escapes us. And, it's rather miraculous that we get to sit in, well, sit, I think, actively involved in this miraculous process that mankind has tried to figure out. They tried to figure it out all the time, and we always fall short, but hey, we're persistent. So, anyway, Nina, how are you doing, my dear? Good to see you. We'll be seeing you tonight with Mr. Ryder Lee, Raised by Giants, 7:30 Central Time. Nina put the link in there, but if you don't know Ryder's channel by now, you should. Chloe, how are you, my darling? Good to see you, Gaia. Hello. Well, thank you. It is a great color, isn't it? I love it, Guy, because you put this color on, and I hear the song, walking on sunshine. Oh yeah. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Guy. How's Paul doing? Send you much love. Truth Seeker. Hello, Bonnie. Good to see you as well. Lost in Space. What's up? Robert V is in the house. Be with Robert on Saturday night. Don't usually do, nighttime things, but hey, it'll be fun and it's family. Mark, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Hello, and welcome. Linda Espinoza, how are you, my dear? Good to see you. Go, all the way from Croatia. We're an international, interdimensional group here. I mean, we rock. Yeah. Thank you for those of you who saw the earlier choice of music. I thought it was rather appropriate, like those bands, and it's a great thing. So it seems like that First Amendment thing, about the freedom of religion. Yeah, people have a little difficult time dealing with that. Yeah. Grace, what's up, girl? Good to see you. Timothy, what's up? And by the way, I know I owe like 5 people emails to send the PDF to, and I will get to you. A lot of people have requested this. It's will go down probably in the year as, one of the ones that people most wanted in their library. It's good stuff. I was telling my wife last night, I said, you know, there are some things when you read, you just click with, it's like it's it fits. It's that piece of the jigsaw puzzle that when you put it in there, it suddenly makes the others connectable. At least that's how it's been for me. We were talking about because Lynn, she is a hospice nurse, and um, it's interesting because when you work with death and you work with people day in and day out that are in the process of transitioning to the voyage. And Lynn and I were talking about this last night, and I said, it's so interesting that in the death industry, and the death industry is a huge $100 billion industry controlled by a very few interests. And you got to think, as far as a revenue model is concerned, death is the perfect model. people are always going to die, and if you control that, well, yeah, working with the Grim Reaper, huh? But anyway, the fact that we use the term voyaging, they're about not to transition, but they're to make their voyage. And I said, that's so interesting because, that belief goes back, we can document it with the Egyptians. They firmly believe that there was this boat that would carry you through the river Sphinx to meet Horus. But anyway, the Vikings, same thing, a voyage. And isn't death a voyage? I mean, it really is. I told my wife, I said, if you start telling people to simply say nothing missing, nothing broken, I mean, that's a powerful entrance to the other side. I mean, that's a proclamation is like, what do you do with that now? If words really count, what do you do with that? Particularly if it's your last words uttered. Nothing missing, nothing broken. I'd be willing to say that I think that your voyage is going to be VIP accommodations. The spirits have to obey us. We're going to get into how to communicate with spirits, how we can begin to understand that they talk to us all the time and we talk to them. I know countless people who still speak to their parents, and though their parents have long crossed over a long time ago. We speak with the spirit world all the time. Why? Because we're spirit beings. It's a natural thing to talk or want to talk to a spirit. They are us and we are them, right? Violence, how are you doing? The Ferryman, yes, yes. Did you see that movie, by the way? Excuse me. It's one of these independent films. They didn't spend much on the set design, but what I liked about the movie was it was the dialogue. And the dialogue was primarily between two characters. They had others that intervened in the vignettes, but well acted, I thought. And if any of you haven't seen that, go and watch it. It's interesting because the idea is that there are those spirit beings that are ferrymen. I mean, think about it. What a journey. I mean, is it truly like going through a wormhole? I don't know. Hey, Stephen, what's up, Jackie? Joe, hello. But it is interesting. Anyway, check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Anyway, death. It's one of those things that there's no escaping. I thought it interesting. Hulk Hogan, guy, everybody knows the name, did great marketer. I mean, if you know a name, that's some great, phenomenal marketing. I mean, it really is. But his recent conversion. And it was interesting because if you read the footnotes, that conversion came primarily because of the fear of death. Hey, Michelle, what's up? Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like, okay. Don't like talking about it. Well, you got to talk about it. You don't talk about it now. What are you going to talk about it? What else? Yeah, the First Amendment thing. Boy, someone wrote me and said, how dare you? How dare you, Mr. Steiger, say that put a Satan in there with God? Well, I mean, if it's freedom of religion for all, then it has to be freedom for religion of one. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And if your God's all badass and what have you, what are you afraid of? Competition is good. Ignorance is a self-inflicted disease easily cured by knowledge. A dude by the name of Wayne Steiger wrote that quote. Yeah, I mean, dude's out there, but gotta admit, it's one of those cool sayings. Like, yeah, Hey, Jargo, what's good to see you as well. Anyway, death. So we're going to learn more. Talking with spirits. You know, it's like goals. How many of you have a goal in your life? Do you, I mean, do you have a goal, much less goals? And if you do you write them down? There is something that connects when you write something down. It's in my head, and it'll never leave me. Habakkuk, 2, 3 and 4, it says, write the vision down for its appointed time, and though it tarry, it shall come to pass. Okay. Sounds like magic to me. Calling those things that be not as though they are. Okay. I mean, surely y'all have studied and you know the story about Jacob, right? And remember when I got a hold of this early on in my life, it opened doors that otherwise, because of my background, my education, etc., would have been prevented. The fact that I even broke through is miraculous, but I got it when I read the story about Jacob. His whole story with Uncle Laban. A lot of people are going, what the hell is he talking about? Well, you got to read the story in context. Basically, he was, indentured to his uncle because Jacob had the hots for the daughter, but there were two daughters. There was one ugly and one beautiful. And so the father, who is the uncle, did some double crossing. And so Jacob, not being real sharp, when he got totally screwed over, went, oh, fuck. And said, well, all right. And actually employed magic, calling those things that be not as though they are, writing it down. And the interesting thing is what he found, and if you were observant enough when you read it, you realize that this had to be a physical, spiritual law. Seems to work in both dimensions. And so what did he do? Well, the deal was he made the deal that, his uncle had this pure breed of livestock. They were all one solid color. And Jacob, the little rascal that he is, said, well, I'll tell you what, for every speckled or spotted offspring, that will be mine. You keep the pure breed, but I get the speckled ones. And so the deal was cast. And then Jacob went and did his magic. Now, what did he do? Well, you see, he understood he had dominion over animals. Got that. So if you have dominion over animals, what does that exactly mean? Well, you simply put in process the way that the animals would actually benefit you. And so he put where they came to drink water each morning and each evening, and subsequently where they also mated, he put up a thatch wall. So while they were mating, both animal was seeing this thatched wall, which is spotted, and sure enough, the mother produced spotted offspring. So much so that in the end, Jacob was accused of theft, witchcraft, thievery. So anyway, it's a fascinating story. And that's what it is. It's a story. But the meaning of the story, if you can derive out of it, it means that you can create anything you want. Anything. Nothing can, I don't care how old you are. I mean, anything you want. Now, in this particular case, we're on a journey to find out a little bit more about, Hindu magic, mysticism, their beliefs. And so far, I'd have to say from the letters and the emails and what have you, people are going, this is far out stuff. So anyway, shall we proceed? And I really meant this about writing down your goals. If you really are believing for something, and when that belief becomes absolutely assurance, sounds like a man hustle. Indeed. Hey, Shirley, how are you? No, you haven't missed the bus. It's still here. Thing about it is, man, you can just do it. Is that Drevalinch? I hope I didn't butcher that too bad. Welcome. All right, so let's get into the study here. It's interesting too, when you look back, this group, remember when we were studying this? This was about 3, maybe 4 years ago. And isn't it odd now? Here we are coming in to a study of an Eastern belief, philosophy, theology, and odd how when we see Western esoteric mysticism, it all has its roots to me in the East. That's just my opinion, but that's what it seems like to me. So, all right. So we're talking in the book, How to Talk to the Spirits. We now know that there are all classes of spirits, all different kinds, but they seem to be attracted here. As I was rereading this last night in points, it's very obvious it's also implicating by the previous chapters that this apparently is commonplace where spirits, corporeal beings, manifest themselves. There's obviously other planets. It seems like that these planets, that's what they're designed for. And we, being the gods, use them to improve upon ourselves. And so we now know that you can actually contact what we would call purified spirits. In other words, they really don't have an agenda other than helping you figure it out. So we talked yesterday as we went off the air on Ouija boards. A lot of different opinions on that. And as I have told you, if you're afraid of it, then by all means, listen to yourself. If you're not, listen to yourself. I think it's just a medium. I don't play with it because, quite frankly, there are some things that you just don't freaking play with. Now, if you have a particular need where that modality comes in and fits it, then by all means. But know what you're driving before you put the key in. All right, so he's writing about how to get the message. He's talking about writing, going to talk about a planchette, and so this is where we are. It says the movement of inert bodies and spirit communication is a fact already proved by experience. We did it as kids. We do it when I used to go to church, when I was living on the commune, holding hands, holding us, people in a circle. There's a reason for that. It's primordial to us. It's instinctual to us. Spirits like to be with other spirits. All right. The point now is to ascertain is whether there is or is not a manifestation of intelligence in this movement separate from the medium. Because the medium many times is the captain who's gotten in the wheelhouse and you're along as a passenger. You best know your freaking medium and make sure to tip them. The second part, no. And if there is, what is the source of this intelligence? It's always a question to me. Now, I haven't really recall actually meeting an alien face to face, but trying to think, well, then how the two of us are going to communicate. Because I'm not naive to believe that in all the universe, everyone knows English. I mean, I just don't see that. But in any case, he says, we are not speaking of the intelligence displayed in the movement of certain objects, nor of verbal communications. Now, I want to stop there because I have one of the ghost boxes. Actually, I got three, that as we continue to advance our science into magic, and particularly the paranormal, and begin to understand that if it's energy, then energy can be, in fact, controlled, manipulated, channeled, flowed. And we're smart enough now where we can take electricity, vibration, frequency, harmony, and actually turn that into spoken word. We didn't have this 100, they didn't have this 50 years ago. So anyway, keep that in mind. Of which the spirit origin is evident for those who have thoroughly investigated the matter, are not, at first sight, sufficiently independent of the will of the medium to bring conviction to an observer new to the subject. We will, therefore, only speak in this place of writing obtained without the aid of an object of any kind, provided with a pencil, such as a small basket, a planchette, etc. The finger of the medium being placed upon the object in such a manner as to defy the most commensurate skill to exercise the slightest influence on the tracing of letters. Okay. And this is a strict lick. Has he passed that? Does she pass that? But let us suppose that by some wonderful cleverness, the medium succeeds in deceiving the most keenly observant eye. How can we explain the nature of the communications? I see a lot of channels on YouTube of people channeling, distant civilizations, channeling this, channeling that. Seen even one who claims to have channeled Jesus Christ. And, it's not that far-fetched. I mean, if he was a spirit, well, why couldn't he be communicated? I mean, if you buy into it, what we believe becomes real. How can we explain the nature of the communications when they are altogether beyond the scope of the medium's knowledge and ideas? In the temples of India, an adept will have many pages of occult teachings dashed off, as frequently happens, with the most astonishing rapidity, sometimes spontaneously, and sometimes upon a given subject, of poems of elevated character and irreproachable in point of style, produced by the hand of an adept or master. And what adds to the strangeness of these facts is that they are occurring all over India, and that the number, of mediums is constantly increasing. Now, to me, it shows that if we were to start teaching this in kindergarten, elementary, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grades, required, they had to have an understanding of the fact that they are spirits, they are souls, there's an accountability, self-responsibility, but guess what? You're also a God. Can you imagine reforming the U.S. educational system to include teaching such as this? They'll never do it. Because in essence, what we've done is just brought back the mystery schools in a public arena. And when that happens, here's the up and down of that. The upside is that there's rapid activation of these hidden abilities, talents, skills. The downside of it is if you're a society that has never dealt with that, you're going to become overwhelmed pretty quickly. At least that's my opinion. Which validates, though, they exist in all of us. Maybe not the exact, but there's enough commonality amongst us. I mean, I have no problem believing that. Yeah, I know this is true. If I spent time in the tarot and became more proficient in that, I have the natural core abilities already. as I think virtually all of us do. Okay, to this query, I have but one reply to make. See and observe. Opportunities of doing so will not be lacking, but above all, observe often for a long time, and according to the conditions required for doing so. To the evidence adduced by us, what do our antagonists reply? You are, they say, the dupes of imposition or the sport of illusion. We have to remark, in the first place, that imposition is not likely to occur where no profit is to be made. Ain't that the truth? It's like, well, ain't no profit in this. Screw this. Charlatans are not apt to ply their trade for gratis. If imposition be practiced, it must be for the sake of a joke. But by what strange coincidence does there happen to be an understanding between the jokers, from one end of the earth to the other, to act in the same way, to produce the same effects, and to give upon the same subjects and in different languages replies that are identical? How the fuck does that happen? If not in words, at least in meaning. Man, they're plugged in. Screw the internet. We got something higher than that. We just didn't realize it. Musk is right. NeuroNet 2.0. Well, and actually it's NeuroNet 3.0, but that's another topic for another time. Imagine what the yogis, the masters, and probably many are here. I keep getting this idea, this medium that we're all immersed in. If we could only learn to draw from that power, we would be tapping into 8 billion souls' energy. It can be done. It's right there for the taking. Y'all don't believe that. Let's continue on. From one end of the earth to the other. How is it that the grave, the serious, honorable, and educated masters can lend themselves to such maneuvers, and for what purpose? How is it that the requisite patience and skill for carrying on such a piece of deception are found even in young children? For mediums, if they are not passive instruments, must possess a degree of skill and an amount and variety of knowledge incompatible with the age and the social position of many of them. But, urge our opponents, if there be no trickery, both parties may be the dupes of an illusion. It is only reasonable that the quality of the witnesses should be regarded as an element in deciding the value of their evidence. And it may fairly be asked whether the Spiritist theory, whose adherents are already to be counted by millions, recruits these only among the ignorant. They say that those who are typically college educated have the most difficulty accepting their natural states. It's the ones who haven't been trained, the ones that haven't been indoctrinated in its particular ideology. The phenomenon on which is based is not so extraordinary that we need to admit any reasonableness of doubt in regard to them. Again, what is not admissible is the pretension of certain Western skeptics to a monopoly of common sense, and the unceremonious way in which, regardless of the moral worth of their adversaries, they tax all who are not of their opinion with infiltration and stupidity. For the affirmation of enlightened adepts and priests in India and other persons who have for a long time seen, studied, and meditated any matter is always, if not a proof, at least a presumption in its favor, since it has been able to fix the attention of men of mark, having no interest in propagating in error, nor time to waste upon worthless trifles. Among the objections brought forward by Western opponents are some which are more spacious, at least in appearance, because they are made by thoughtful minds. One of these objections is prompted by the fact that the language of spirits does not always seem worthy of the evaluation. Adapts attributed to beings beyond the pale of humanity. But if the objector will take the trouble to look at the doctrinal summary we have given above, we will see that the spirits themselves inform us that they are not equals, either in knowledge or in moral qualities, that we are not to accept anything said by spirits as literal truth, and that we must judge for ourselves of the value of their statements. You see, that's my problem with the Bible. The Bible cannot be a word of quote unquote a God. Because if that's the case, then what we have is men who none of us can interview, none of us can see what their characters were, that were channeling. These were, as they admit, not my words. Well, the very book that is supposedly held against witches, sorcerers, etc., the occult, the mysteries, is the very book that was written by the communication of the spirits. Double standard. Assuredly, those who infer from this fact that we have to deal only with what? How shall we say, the evil guys, the ones that have an agenda? No. These malevolent beings whose sole occupation is to deceive us have no acquaintance with the communications obtained in certain parts of India, habitually frequented by spirits of superior advancement, or they could not entertain such an opinion. Now, I don't know about you, but I got to say, I don't have a whole lot of experience dealing with spirits in manners of which there is verbal communication. I get the idea of thought. I get that. I understand meditation. I get that. And I get that the visits I've had in meditation. Now, am I in fact channeling that? Am I in fact there? Are they in fact here? My experience says yes. But what I'm also learning is that there is a higher level to this. I mean, I don't seek the opinion, the advice of spirits, but I love conversation. I enjoy conversation where I'm learning. And if a spirit really doesn't know everything, but has a certain advantage on the other side, but yet has the ability to pierce the veil to communicate on this side, what's up? I mean, would you do it? Do you do it? I mean, curious, those of you in the chat room and listening to this on replay, do you communicate with the spirits? I know a number of you who do. But what about you if you don't? What's your opinion on that? You know, the way I kind of look at it is that we're all going to die. And if you go with the general thought, our consciousness somehow survives this transition time, which tells me then there's going to be others on that other side. And if I don't know how to talk to them, well, how am I going to talk to them over there? What, is this someone going to say, boom, like that? Hey, abracadabra. I don't think so. It didn't work that well in this realm. Show me a baby that came out with a martini and a cigarette in the other hand and said, "So what's the fucking market doing today?" Doesn't work that way, you know? I mean, are they thinking in English? I will merely suggest that in some cases, the inquirers may not be so thoroughly principled in goodness as to repel evil, and that, taking advantage of their curiosity in regard to them, imperfect spirits make use of the opening thus afforded to come about them, while those of a higher order withdraw from them. Well, there's a clue right there. Seems the higher level spirits got no need to hang around you and cause you grief. They apparently got other things to do over there, which then you got to ask them, what about these low-life spirits? What, are they just dropouts? Are they just, complete rebels? I mean, if the spirit realm and if all things are progressing to this quote-unquote perfection, then how long do they stay mischievous? No, seems like a long time. Seems like a long time. All right, to judge the question of spirits by these facts would be as little reasonable as to judge of the character of people by the sayings and doings of the party of wild or disreputable fellows, with whom the educated and respectable classes of the population have nothing to do with. I had to go to protocol and etiquettes training. Yeah, whole thing. Such persons are in the position of the traveler who, entering some great capital by one of its worst suburbs, should judge of all its inhabitants by the habits and language of this low quarter. In the world of spirits, as in our own, there are higher and lower caste of society. Wow. That one right there, I think we could talk a great deal on, because if that's the case, then as I was meditating this morning in my quiet time, are there buildings in the spirit, the ethereal realm? Are there cities? Apparently there must be. I was taught in the Bible that Jesus said that he goes to prepare a mansion for me. Well, that word has been translated over the centuries, but okay. Apparently there are. Apparently there are homes. There's roads. Apparently there's, ways of transportation. What, do you just think everything is just misty and foggy? But this caste system, wow. But again, I'm the neophyte here. I'm just learning. I have no right, no position to make a judgment on what the spirit realm is or is not. The very best I can do is do my best to learn, to read as many different ideas and thoughts. It exists. I'm learning that it exists by particular group thinkers that hold a particular thought, and they need others to be a part of that thought in order to actually have that created, which tells me maybe that's how it exists in the other side. How many cities in the ethereal have been abandoned because there's no one that believes in it anymore? Anyway, let's continue. Let inquirers make a study of what goes on among spirits of high degree, and they will be convinced that the astral world is not peopled solely by ignorant and vicious spirits. Wow. You see, that tells me right there, just earlier as I was talking, I'm not well versed in this, or at least not to this point, or that I'm aware of. I'm becoming aware of it now. And then you look at your past experience, you're going, yeah, I can draw for that. Yeah, I could use that. But it will be asked, do spirits of high degree come among us? To which question we reply, do not remain in the suburbs. See, observe, and judge. The facts are within reach of all but those alluded to by Jesus as having eyes but not seeing and ears but not hearing. Love that. And why is it every city has that, the poor, the ghettos, and then you have, and you can see the interesting dichotomy of cities because you can see the progression of where you have the poor, you have the middle class, which is far less than it was when I was growing up, and then you have the rich, and then the rich have their categories. You got the poor rich, and then you've got the really wealthy. It has to be similar on the other side. Didn't Jesus say, do not store your treasures here on earth where moth and rust and thief can come in and steal, but put them into heaven to where no one can touch them? Why would you need riches on the other side? Think. A variety of the same objections consist at attributing all spirit communications and all the physical manifestations by which they are accompanied to the interventions of some diabolical power, some new protus that assumes every form in order that the more effectually to be deceived us, without pausing to analyze a supposition that we regard as not susceptible of serious examination, and that is, moreover, refuted by what has already been said. I have only to remark that if such were the case, it would have to be admitted either that the devil is sometimes very wise, very reasonable, and above all, moral, or else that there are good devils as well as bad ones. Now, maybe I'm sitting here in the Group W bench, but I'm going, well, wouldn't that apply to angels? Good angels? Bad angels? Well, sure it would. Look at the movie The Prophecy. You get the whole idea. Gabriel. Well, Gabriel's the James Dean of the angels. Bad dude. Spirit manifestations. But in fact, it is possible to believe that God would permit only the spirit of evil to manifest himself, and this in order to ruin us, without giving us also the counsels of good spirits as a counterpoint. To suppose that he cannot do this is to limit his power. To suppose that he can do it, but abstains from doing it, is incompatible with the belief in his goodness. But suppositions are equally blasphemous. It must be observed that to admit the communication of evil spirits is to recognize the existence of spirit manifestations. But if they exist, it can only be with the permission of God. And how can we, without impiety, believe that he would permit them to occur only for a bad purpose, to the exclusion of a good one? Such a supposition is contrary alike to the simplest dictates of occult teaching and of common sense. Common sense? The hell is that? One strange feature of the matter, urge other objectors, is that fact that only the spirits of well-known personages manifest themselves. And it is asked why these should be the only ones who do so. Good question. I always hear about all these leaders of the past, but I want to talk to the guy that carried out the shit pan every morning. I want to know what his life was like. Does he learn anything? Has he learned anything on the other side? This quarry is suggested by an error due, like many others, to superficial observation. Among the spirits who present themselves spontaneously, the greater number are none known to us, and therefore call themselves by names that we know, and that serve to characterize them. So if you have a belief in Christ, you're a Christian. If you have a belief in Allah, Muhammad, you are a Muslim. It makes sense, right? With regard to those whom we invoke, unless in the case of relatives or friends, we naturally address ourselves to spirits whom we know of, rather than to those who are unknown to us. And as the names of illustrious persons are those which strike us most forcefully, they are, for that reason, those which are most remarked. I mean, I'm not under the illusion that my name is really Wayne. That's my name here. I no doubt have a other name, a name that's very sacred, a name that I am, and as you are as well, we're not permitted to speak. Why? Because if we speak our true names, that subjects us to potential misuse of others. And that's backed up, by the way, in the Bible. Yeah. Interesting. I don't know about you. Hey, Robert V, does this make sense to you, man? It does. It kind of answers a lot of the questions. It kind of had the strangest dream last night, too. Wow. And this is what happens to me. You read this and the dreams. Wow. It was really a cool dream, too. It is also considered as strange that the spirits of intimate men should respond familiarly to our call, and should sometimes interest themselves in things that appear trifling in comparison with those which they accomplished during their life. But there is in this nothing surprising for those who know that the power and consideration which a man may have possessed in this lower life give him no supremacy in the spirit world. Spirits confirm the gospel statement that the last shall be first and the first shall be last, as regards the ranks of each of us when we return among them. Thus, he who has been first in the earthly life may be one of the last in the spirit world. He before whom all bowed their heads during the present life may then find himself beneath the humblest artisan. For on quitting the earthly life, he leaves all his grandeur behind him, and the most powerful monarch may be lower than the lowest of his subjects. Wow. You get this, at least I do, I get this spirit mind impression that it's complex over there. It's not darkness. It's not this whole point. There may be aspects of that, but I think that has to do with how you begin to adjust and how you begin to receive it. But there apparently needs to be a very complex, organized hierarchy on the ethereal plane. Love this stuff. A fact ascertained by observation and confirmed by the spirits themselves is the borrowing of well-known and venerated names by spirits of inferior degree. This causes doubt to exist among many fervent adherents of Spiritist doctrine, who admit the reality of the intervention and manifestation of spirits. And they ask themselves what certainty we can have of their identity. This certainty, it is, in fact, very difficult to obtain. But though it cannot be settled as authentically as by the assertion of a civil register, it may at least be established presumptively according to certain indications. When the spirit who manifests himself is that of someone personally known to us, of a relative or friend, for instance, and especially if of one who has been dead but a short time, it is generally found that his language is perfectly in keeping with what we know of his character, thus furnishing a strong presumption of his identity, which is placed almost beyond reach of doubt when the spirit speaks of private affairs and refers to family matters known only to the party to whom he addresses himself. A son could hardly be mistaken as to the language of his father and mother, nor parents as to of their children. Most striking incidents often occur in evocations of this intimate kind, things of a nature to convince the most incredulous. The most skeptical are often astounded by the unexpected revelations thus made to them. Another very characteristic circumstance often helps to establish a spirit's entity. I have already said that the handwriting of the medium generally changes with the spirit invoked, and the same writing being reproduced exactly every time the spirit presents itself or himself. And it often happens that in the case of persons recently deceased, these writings bear a striking resemblance to that of the person during life, the signatures especially being sometimes perfectly exact. We are, nevertheless, very far from adducing this fact as a rule or as being a constant reoccurrence. We merely mention it as a point worthy of notice. I would say so. It is only when spirits have arrived at a certain degree of purification that they are entirely freed from all corporeal influences. And as long as they are not completely dematerialized, to employ their own expression, they retain most of the ideas, tendencies, and even the hobbies they had while on earth, all of which furnish additional means of identification. But these are especially to be found in the vast number of small details that are only perceived through sustained and attentive observation. Spirits who have been authors are seen to discuss their own works or views, approving or blaming them. Others allude to various circumstances connected with their life or death. And from all these indications, we obtain that what may, at least, be regarded as moral presumptions in favor of their identity, the only ones that can be looked for under the circumstances of the case. Wow. Are y'all learning? I mean, I'm like here just, whoa. I feel like I'm almost at a banquet, a buffet. I want to eat more, but there's only so much that I can consume at one time. The identity of the spirit evoked. If, then, the entity of the spirit evoked may be established to a certain extent and in certain cases, there is no reason why that identity may not exist in others. And although we may not have the same means of identification in regard to persons whose death is of more distant date, you always have that of language and character. For the spirit of a good and enlightened man will surely not express himself like that of a deprived or ignorant one. As for inferior spirits who assume honored names, they soon betray themselves by the character of their language and statements. If someone, for instance, calling himself so-and-so, gave utterance to remarks at variance with common sense or morality, his imposture would at once become evident. But if the thoughts expressed by him were always noble, consistent, and of an elevation worthy of the soul he claims to be, there would be no reason to doubt his identity. For otherwise, we would have to admit that a spirit who communications inculcate only goodness would knowingly be guilty of falsehood. Experience shows us that spirits of the same degree, of the same character, and animated by the same sentiments are united in groups and families. Did y'all get that? Family? It ain't by coincidence, I'm telling you. We form our tribes here because they represent where we come from. But the number of spirits is incalculable, and we are so far from knowing all of them that the names of the immense majority of them are necessarily unknown to us. A spirit of the same category as Buzaj, a Hindu now in spirit land, may therefore come to us in his name, and may even been sent by him as his representative, in which case he would naturally announce himself as Buja, because he is his equivalent and able to supply his place. And because we need a name in order to fix our ideas in regard to him. And after all, what does it matter whether a spirit is really Bujai or not? If all that he says is excellent, and such as Buja himself would be likely to say. For in that case, we must be a spirit of superior advancement. And the name under which he presents himself is of no importance, being often only a means of fixing our ideas. This sort of substitution would not be acceptable in evocations of a more intimate character. But in these, just as pointed out, I have other means of ascertaining the identity of the communicating spirit. It is certain, however, that the assumption of false names by spirits may give rise to numerous mistakes, may be a source of error and deception, and is, in fact, one of the most serious difficulties of practical Spiritism. But I have never said that this field of investigation, any more than any other, is exempt from obstacles, nor that it can be fruitfully explored without serious and persevering effort. I cannot too often reiterate the warning that Spiritism is a new field of study for the Western man, and one that demands long and studious exploration. Being unable to produce at pleasure the facts on which Spiritism is based, you are obliged to wait for them to present themselves. And it often happens that, instead of occurring when you are looking for them, they occur when least expected. For the attentive and patient observer, materials for study are abundant, because he discovers in the facts thus presented thousands of characteristics, peculiarities, which are for him so many sources of light. It is the same in regard to every other branch of science. While the superficial observer sees in a flower only the elegant form, the botanist discovers it in a mine of interest for his thoughts. The foregoing remarks lead me to say a few words in relation to other difficulties and the divergence which exist in the statement made by spirits. Spirits differing very widely from one another as regards their knowledge and morality. It is evident that the same question may receive from them very different answers, according to the rank at which they have arrived, exactly as would be the case if it were propounded alternatively to a man of science, an ignoramus, and a mischievous wag. I love this English. The important point, as previously remarked, is to know who is the spirit to whom you are addressing your questions. But it will be argued, how is it that spirits who are admittedly of superior degree are not all of the same opinion? I reply in the first place that there are, independently of the cause of diversity just pointed out, other causes that may exercise an influence on the nature of the replies, irrespectively of the quality of the spirits themselves. This is a point of the highest importance, and one that will be explained by your ulterior study of the subject, provided that this study be prosecuted with the aid of the sustained attention, the prolonged observation, the method and perseverance that are required in the pursuit of every other branch of human inquiry. Years of study are needed to make even a second-rate physician. 3/4 of a lifetime to make a man of learning. The people fancy that a few hours will suffice to acquire the science of occultism. Let there be no mistake in regard to this matter. The subject of Spiritism is immense. It involves all other subjects, physical, metaphysical, and social. It is a new world that opens before you. It is strange that time, and a good deal of time, should be required for becoming acquainted with it. The contradictions alluded to, moreover, are not always as absolute as they may seem to be at first sight. We do not see every day that men who are pursuing the same science giving various definitions of the same thing, sometimes because they make use of different terms, sometimes because they consider it from different points of view, although the fundamental idea is the same in each case. Let anyone count up, if he can, the different definitions that have been given of grammar. It must also be remembered that the form of the answer often depends on the form under which the question has been put, and that it would be childish to regard as a contradiction what is often only a difference of words. The higher spirits pay no heed to form of expression. For them, the thought itself is everything. Okay, tomorrow we'll pick up definition of the soul. I hope you're finding this as delightful as I am. I know you are. You wouldn't be watching it. I mean, this is just cool stuff. Take from it that you like and reject the rest. It is definitely a smorgasbord. I mean, wow, there is a lot to chew on. I saw Lucky Stone wrote, and he said, I can only eat so much, and it's true. We can only eat so much. Hey, Letty Ellie, good to see you. Yeah, it is Solstice Day. Welcome, everybody. Happy Solstice Day. And wow, my mind is a buzzing. Sugar plum fairies dancing in my head, right? Hey, Grace. Um, It is. Grace writes, she says, I love this discussion. The spirit world is beyond our comprehension. And thank you, Grace. Right back at you, darling. Yeah, I mean, I'm just completely freaking blown away. And that's one of those terms, because well, what does that mean? I mean, blown away? Why would you say that? Well, it's an expression of, sensory overload. It's like when you're in a casino. I can only take those things in small doses, because the sensory overload just becomes too much. The bells, ding, 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 all the rest of it. So anyway, Bonnie, Equicentric Solstice, how are you doing? Good to see you. Hope I said that right. Manuel, good to see you as well. Well, lovely group, families, groups, tribes. We've talked that on this channel nearly 10 years ago. This channel started 10 years ago. And look at it. Look at us all now. I hope that's just that can be both positive and negative, I guess. And, we've grown a lot. We've had people come, we've had people leave, but the vast majority of many of us here, we've been here from day one. Well, technically, it's not true. I was the only one here from day one, but anyway, you get it. Anyway, thanks everyone. uh, and if you didn't get food for thought today, and then tomorrow the soul, just yeah, ask, and when the student is ready. So we're the students here. We're ready. That's all I can say, right, honey? Thank you. Let's just continue on with it. It's fun. Mark, good to see you. Thank you. 7 years. Man, thank you, brother. Wow. Claudette. Wow. Thank you. Humbled. Yeah. All right, everyone. We'll see you tonight. Tune in tonight with Ryder Lee over at Raised by Giant. It's 7:30 Central Time. I think 6:30 Mountain. It should be fun. I know Robert V will be on there. I think Nina, myself, and I'm not sure who other, but yeah, should be a little holiday party, and nothing wrong in partying. You know, I never needed a reason for a party. Yeah, it's like, okay, let's go party. Loretta, good to see you. All right, happy solstice, winter solstice day, and until we meet again. All right, my friends, thank you.